Enjoy early access to ad-free episodes each week when you subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium in Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show. Why, hello there, and thank you so much, as always, for joining me here this week on the Wedding Planning Podcast. We are going to talk through a really common frustration that maybe you have experienced, and that is when you cannot for the life of you find a pricing sheet or any pricing information on a vendor's website. Or even worse than that, you can't find it, so you reach out to them to ask for the pricing information, and the response is something along the lines of, "We can't provide that until we have a more detailed meeting with you." This is so frustrating. And then you reach the point where you're yelling at your computer, "Just tell me the price." So, as you can maybe relate to, the whole notion of filling out an inquiry form for a vendor and then having them want to meet to explain and sell their services, in many cases, this can just be a complete waste of time. And if there's one primary pet peeve I have in my entire overall life, it is wasting time. Time is so precious. There is a finite amount of it, and we all have a million different things going on in our lives. The last thing on earth I have the time for is to spend 20 minutes on a Zoom call with a photographer who is $4,000 above my set budget. So here's how I personally would handle this, and take it or leave it. You can do it however you'd like. If it was me shopping for wedding vendors, which I've already done, I've been there, done that, been married for over a decade. But if it were me, I would always choose vendors who have 100% price transparency. And I'm not saying that has to be right on their website, like a tab for pricing, although that certainly is helpful. If they choose not to put it right on their website, then I believe it needs to be immediately given when requested via phone or an email. This is a sign of respect for you, your budget, and your time. And to me, providing this information and being transparent about it is simply a signal that the vendor values efficiency and common sense, both of which are incredibly valuable assets to you, their client. I'll go ahead and share a script that you can use for finding out package pricing from vendors, and I'll put a cut and paste in the show notes and also in a blog post for today's show. But here's kind of the gist of that script and how you can word it. On the contact form on their website or in an email, I would simply say, "We are very motivated to choose a photographer for our wedding," and you would put the date there. I would talk a little bit about how you found them and what sparked your interest in the first place. And then I would close this note by simply saying, "Will you kindly share your package options and pricing?" If their response indicates that you need to book a meeting or a call to get more information on their pricing, and you really, really want to work with this person, if you're really curious, then I would simply send one reply that says, "Out of respect for both of our time, I need to confirm your pricing range before moving forward," period. There's a lot of competition in the wedding industry, and if a potential photographer or florist or planner, etc., is not willing to be transparent about their general price range, then I can assure you that there are others out there who will be happy to share that information with you. All right, so here's the part where we get to services that may require more information in order to provide you with an accurate quote. So we can't always expect that you can pull up a PDF on a website and have an exact line item price quote that reflects your specific situation. All right, that's common sense. So here are a couple of services that are likely, maybe they can give you a range, and that's a great starting point, but they are more than likely going to require some more information in order to give you an accurate quote. And the top one there would be venue and or catering. Sometimes those come together as a package, sometimes they don't. Again, you can ask for a general price range, but please be aware that there are endless variables and customizations that go into a catering or a venue quote. So, getting the information that packages start at $125 per person, that's a helpful starting point, but that will 99.999% likely not be your actual final price. So just keep that in mind. Another wedding service, just right off the top of my head, that might require more information to give an accurate quote would be alterations. I wouldn't expect someone to be able to share an accurate estimate without actually seeing your dress, the fabric, the design, the fit, etc. So, of course, there are cases where a general price range is not going to fit your unique wedding vision. So, defenders of the practice of withholding price information until you've had a lengthy formal meeting, they will say that this is exactly why they do that, because the vendor needs a complete, detailed picture on exactly what you're seeking in order to give you an accurate price quote. That's fair, and I can get on board with that to a point, but ultimately it comes down to a mutual respect for one another's time. If, as a venue or a planner or a hair and makeup artist or a florist, if your starting price point is $5,000 and a prospective client has budgeted $2,000, then any meeting or any further communication is a complete waste of everyone's time. And that is why this is so frustrating. And then let's touch quickly on that feeling you get. You have a little feeling that someone has given you a price quote, but that number is not actually the total price. Maybe you have a pretty good radar for when something is too good to be true. Again, this is fair, totally valid feeling, but until you take a few additional steps and get to the point of signing a contract, be aware that you may not get the end all final price tag just based on 2 quick emails back and forth. My advice here would be to cushion your budget and cushion these quotes so that if a florist quote is $2,000 for their basic package, you are already assuming that there will be a delivery charge, tax, gratuity, and maybe some additional upgrade fees here and there on top of that $2,000. If $2,000 total is absolutely the very most that you can afford to budget for flowers, then I would be aiming for quotes more towards $1,500 as a starting point. The reality of fee schedules and pricing is that things do sneak in there. That's just how it is. I'm not saying it's right, and it's certainly annoying, but you do yourself a favor by just building in that cushion at the very beginning, and then you're not surprised in the end. And I'll say here to wrap this quick hitter conversation up, transparency goes both ways. So the vendor owes it to you, and you also owe it to the vendor so that they can give you an accurate quote that actually fits your needs. Any quote is only as accurate as the information that you provide. So if the expectation is that you're looking for a general range and just a general starting point to see if it's worth your time to pursue a particular venue, then that's great. But if you're expecting that within one email exchange, a venue will be able to provide you with an itemized line item invoice with an accurate final price point, that is not a reasonable expectation. Okay, during the second half here, I have some listener questions that have come in over the past couple of weeks that I want to make sure to get to. First is from a bride named Tara, and I'll just go ahead and share her audio.
Hi there. I am a September 2025 bride, and I'm about 5 months out from my wedding now. I'm wondering if I could submit a request for a checklist for about maybe 6 to 4 months out from the wedding, because I feel like I'm at a point where I'm just stuck, and I'd love a little push in the right direction.
Tara, thank you so much for being in touch. Thank you for your note. To get you started really quickly on a 4 to 6 month checklist, I would honestly recommend just heading to Google and typing that in. If you're a Chat GPT person, that can be great as well, just to give you a really specific way to cater those search results to your specific wedding situation. It's really hard for me to provide blanket timelines based on like you're 12 months away, you're 9 months away, you're 4 months away, you're 6 months away, etc. Just because everyone's engagement length and the different unique circumstances of every wedding, everyone is just so different. So for me to provide a 4 to 6 month checklist that's going to apply to everyone is probably not really going to hit the mark, if that makes sense. So to give yourself the most accurate information for your situation, again, if you're a Chat GPT user, I find that to be a very simple, very quick way to get a pretty personalized search result. And if not, you can just go ahead and head to Google and put that in, search Pinterest. Those are some quick ideas on that. Next up, I have a question about a second marriage, a second wedding, and whether or not it's appropriate to have a gift registry. This is a personal preference, and there are going to be people who insist that it's tacky to register for gifts in any scenario. So I would recommend honestly just going with your gut instinct on that. How do you feel about it? The listener also indicates that she feels one way and her fiance feels another way. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. I don't think it's like completely out of left field tacky to provide a gift registry to your guests when you are hosting a wedding, whether it's your first wedding or your second wedding. I don't personally feel like that matters that much. But again, if you guys have a gut feeling that this just isn't something that you're comfortable with, then by all means, go ahead and scratch it. Next up, we have a bride who's looking for some budget-friendly rental options for dinnerware, plates, and glassware.
Hi, Kara. My name's Olivia, and I'm getting married late summer, so September, early September. And I wanted to know if you have any episodes, or maybe this is an episode topic you could address, like some budget-friendly rental options. So, like specifically dinnerware, like plates, glassware. I know there's the option of like acrylics, like high quality acrylics, but like maybe like companies that supply those things that you can rent for cheaper, because I know my venue is charging us like almost $700 and just for the dinnerware rentals, and that price includes a $300 delivery fee. And it's just like, wow, that's really expensive. So I'm trying to see if there are other options or companies that like provide the dinnerware rentals that are like just a bit more affordable. Thank you.
In terms of budget rental offerings in your area, you can make a couple of phone calls around. The reality is that renting things is really expensive. It doesn't work in every situation or scenario, but honestly, one of my pieces of advice is to research what it would cost or what it would look like to buy all of this stuff and then use it and resell it. That might be a little bit more work than you are looking to take on, but it is certainly an option. And then, lastly, to wrap up today's show, I have a question about tipping your vendors. What is appropriate? How do we know how much is appropriate? And when is it appropriate not to leave a tip? I feel like we could do a much longer episode on this. This is another one of those hot button topics that people feel very passionately about one way or another. And I think one of the misconceptions in our society about tipping for an event like a wedding is we kind of carry that 15 to 20% rule around in our heads. This is in the United States. We are very unique, by the way, in our expectations of leaving a 20% tip at a restaurant. So here in the US, when you eat at a restaurant, and you have a server who is taking care of you for that dining experience, the common expectation is that 20% is a fair gratuity for someone who has provided a good experience. That is not the case basically anywhere else in the world. So, again, this conversation is kind of more so for my United States based listeners. When you go into planning a wedding, that 15 to 20% gratuity rule does not apply across the board to every single vendor and service that you are hiring. So, it is, again, all of this is very subjective, and you can have a different feeling on it than I do. That's totally fine. The fact is, there is no universal tipping Bible for how much you have to or should tip any given vendor. There are couples who will tip 20% across the board, and honestly, there are probably more couples who do not tip at all. It's important that you kind of sit down and hammer out your thoughts on this and how you are going to proceed, because you will want to be prepared with your tipping strategy before you go into your actual wedding day. You want to have a clear picture of what you're doing. Some of the recommended guidelines that you can use, take it or leave it, if a business owner is the one providing the service. So, a common example of this would be a wedding planner, a photographer, a hair and makeup artist. If they are self employed, if they are operating under their own business, it is theirs, they own it, then it is pretty common etiquette that they do not get a gratuity on top of their posted prices. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you can't share a gratuity if you are so called to do so. That's absolutely fine. But typically in the tipping world, again, I'm talking about the US here, a person who owns their own business and is calling their own shots and setting their own prices is not someone who would traditionally be required to receive a gratuity. Now, let's go to catering, which is very commonly bundled with your venue. This is a very frequent wedding service that gratuity will already be built in for you. So if you are being charged a line item gratuity of 20% for the catering and the wait staff and the venue staff, then do you need to leave more on top of that? 20% is generous. That is a generous tip. I don't think you need to go above and beyond that, especially when it's already been included in there for you. You may want to tip individual bartenders, individual servers, restroom attendants, parking valets, but these people are not tipped on the 20% of the service scale. These people can just be tipped individually. So an individual bartender, 50 bucks, an individual server, 50 bucks. Everyone on the valet team, 50 bucks. Obviously, again, choose an amount that makes sense for you and you feel comfortable with, and an amount that reflects your gratitude for the service provided. There's a reason it's called a gratuity. It's an expression of your gratitude for a service. So, those are just some really quick, off the top of my head thoughts on tipping. If you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation, or if you have wedding questions that you would like to throw out for a future show, please by all means feel free to be in touch with me. You can reach me anytime by visiting our website, which is weddingplanningpodcast.co. You'll find a link to a contact page right there on the home front page. And you can also view past podcast episodes and special offers from our sponsors. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll meet you next week, same time, same place.